I am resident of Collinwood for YouTube. Joel Sains, that's my buddy Butch Rosenbalm. We are here to review the Western Rio Lobo, the end of the Howard Hawks John Wayne trilogy. We did Rio Bravo. We've covered El Dorado. And this is the final of the trilogy. I'm laughing because this movie, I want to run something past you, Butch.
Lay it on me.
You and I have talked many times about this film when we have not been recording. And you and I both mentioned John Wayne should have played the alcoholic. He should have played the drunk. I have a theory, and the reason I went back and watched this film so many times, because I feel at times in the movie, John Wayne is attempting to try to play the drunk, but it doesn't go. It doesn't stick. There's a moment where he's he is drinking and he's trying and he's being funny, which is, and there's that moment with the dentist. He's like, well, if you were a better actor. So there's moments of comedy with Wayne in this movie, just not enough written comedic dialogue for him to be all the way funny or what I would call slapstick, I guess. What do you think?
Where that all comes from, I remember reading somewhere, and I'm sorry I can't specify, but allegedly Howard Hawks got in touch with John Wayne and said, hey, you want to do it again? And he's like, great, do I get to play the drunk this time? And by this time, John Wayne was not the draw that he was in the 50s and the 60s. He still was a big name. I don't mean it that way.
Right.
But John Wayne, I think, I'm going to tell you something. In my opinion, by this time, I think audiences were a little tired of John Wayne playing John Wayne. They wanted a little bit more. And I think Wayne realized that with Chisholm and Big Jake and, the later Bat Jack films. And I think if John Wayne had been able to play the drunk, and I don't mean, the little bits here and there like you're mentioning. I do kind of like maybe he was kind of, a little bit. But if he had been able to spread his wings a little bit and do a little bit of acting, this film might have been better. We've talked about this film and we've not spoken of it kindly.
Hey, I'll be right back. Go ahead and talk. I gotta check on my daughter. I'm sorry.
Go ahead. As Joel said, this is the third in the John Wayne Howard Hawks trilogy, starting with Rio Bravo, second with El Dorado, and then this Rio Lobo. Basically, there's somewhere in it, there is a sheriff who has a prisoner in his jail, and him and his allies stay in the jail. Otherwise the prisoner will get out. He has people on the outside trying to help him get out, and they're trying to force the sheriff to give him up. This one is less of a prisoner in a cell. They do have a gentleman. They do have a bad guy that they capture and are using him to right some wrongs. But it's a loose. I shouldn't say remake. It's in the same vein, shall we say. Yeah, I thought you sat back down. I'm going to ask you something. I'm going to start with a statement, and then I'm going to ask your opinion.
Sure.
We've spoke about this film, and usually it's not very kind. But every time I rewatch it, it's better than I remember. Is it good? I don't think it's bad. I'll say that. And when you're compared to two of the best Westerns ever in Rio Bravo and El Dorado, that bar is so high. I mean, perfect example, in my opinion, the original Star Wars trilogy, what they now call Episode 4, Empire Strikes Back, and then Jedi. Which one's the less? Jedi. And oddly enough, Jedi had the biggest budget and the better special effects. This film, it's better than I remember, but compared to the other two, it's lesser. Well, what's your take on that?
I'll say this. There are films where they are a part of franchises, because that's what this is. This is a franchise trilogy. I feel the movie isn't god awful. It's not. It's first of all, it's watchable and it's entertaining. And if you get those qualities out of any movie, you have a halfway decent film. If I had to change two things about this whole, well, more than two, so I apologize to the late Howard Hawks and late John Wayne. If I had to change this movie, John Wayne would have been the co-star of this movie. That's number one.
What role would he be playing?
He would play instead of because the sheriff, the description of this movie is off for those who don't know. Me and Butch know this. It says the sheriff is going to defend the town. The sheriff does not defend the town in this movie. That's a misconception. As Butch is agreeing, because it is. That's what's weird about it. Like if you just read the description of this movie, for those who don't know, who are going to listen to this, the description is very off. The sheriff is a heel in this. That's another thing I would have changed. The sheriff would not have been a heel in this. It'd have been John Wayne, but he'd have been drunk. He would have basically been Robert Mitchum's role, but doubled down. Oh, my wife, it had been his wife who left him because he chose to still be a sheriff. Oh, my wife left me, he's drinking. The star of this movie, and you can call me a homer, and I will agree to it, would have been Henry Fonda. Yes, he's my favorite actor, but with reason. He would have been a very meanish colonel, way meaner than what Wayne's was in this movie. And he'd have been so the woman who you see in this movie who comes for help would have been a different role. She would have been supplying John Wayne's liquor habit. And when she comes to him the one day, she says, "Hey, there's a man who's asking for you. He just came into town. He looks real mean looking." Oh, yeah? How mean looking is? He doesn't grab the bottle yet from her. He sees Fonda on a horse approaching. He's like, then he takes the bottle, pops it, drinks it. He goes, "No, I'm seeing things." And then before he takes the third drink, the bottle gets shot out of his hand by Fonda. And he says, "As much as I hear you've been drinking, no wonder you're seeing things." They could have had that in this movie. They don't. It is disappointing that you don't get that in this movie. That's what I'll say. The drunk John Wayne sheriff. Because what could have been of that visual of Wayne playing a different type of Western character. He's not a coward. He's just depressed with his wife choosing to leave him. He gave up the woman he loved for the job and didn't think she'd leave, but she did. And Westerns can be simplistic that way. And yeah, would this have been if that would happen? Sure, but I think it could have been funny. I do love the little comedy we get. I love the shootouts we get. I think John Wayne plays his character very well. And I do love the comedy John Wayne does get in this movie. I think he pulls it off good. There is moments of this movie where John Wayne is funny, and it's like, he could do it. If you gave John Wayne the comedic material, he could do it. It's not that, is John Wayne the greatest actor of all time? No, he's not. Can he act? Yes, he can. There's a difference. Again, would I put him in my top 5? No. But at the same time, he wasn't this slouch everybody makes him out to be either. Because there are those who say, "Oh, John Wayne couldn't act." That's not exactly true.
John Wayne got pigeonholed by his own success.
Yeah.
I said this before we started. I think John Wayne was like, in the 50s and 60s, he was the number one draw in American cinema. So people wanted to see John Wayne playing John Wayne type characters, or as we say, they want to see John Wayne playing John Wayne, and his films made a lot of money. So why would you mess with that formula? You're not. I mean, I totally agree with what you just said. John Wayne could act. We've watched it. We've done his two best acting jobs in The Searchers and The Shootist. Two films. I know The Searchers is really respected, but I think both of them are incredibly underrated, in my opinion. I'll say that again. Incredibly underrated, especially for John Wayne's acting. Now, I tell you, sticking with the basic script we have.
Yeah.
At the beginning, and to one of my points, the opening train sequence is the best thing in the whole film.
Yeah.
Allegedly, it was filmed by the second unit. So that should tell you where I'm headed with my blame, but we'll get to that. There's a character in there. Let me make sure I have his name right. I believe it's Forsyth. Yes, Lieutenant Forsyth. You get the impression he's John Wayne's character's protege.
Yeah.
He's robbed. It's really, I don't even want to describe it. You should watch it. Anybody watching this, if you've not seen this film, you should watch that. If nothing else, watch the whole train. Watch all of the whole train sequence. But Lieutenant Forsyth is on the train when he gets robbed, and he jumps off to get away from some a nest of bees they throw in. Well, he breaks his neck, and he ends up dying.
Yeah.
And what they could have done is you find out after all that Forsyth's death hits him really hard.
Yeah.
And he starts drinking.
Yeah.
Then I would drop the part of him, the John Wayne role from going into meeting the Frenchie, not Tuscarora, the other one, Jorge Rivero.
Yeah.
Character. I would drop that. Where we meet back up with John Wayne, he's playing the Jack Elam character.
Yeah.
Off his ass, and they'd be like, where's I forget his rank, Colonel or General. Where's Colonel McNally? Oh, he's over there on his farm. He's been drinking himself to death. And John gets to play the drunk guy, and he gets to do some comedy because Jack Elam is one of the best parts of this film.
Oh yeah.
As very underrated actor. But I love that part. As much as I hate that don dee don don dee whatever that thing is that he plays.
Yeah.
I hear that and I just kind of smile because I know who's showing up. I know what's going to happen.
I'll say this. Sorry, go ahead.
Lieutenant Forsyth. Interestingly enough, you ever seen the movie Prince of Darkness? I'm sure you have.
Yes.
When they're towards the beginning, when they're setting up the equipment, there's a professor there, kind of an older guy, and he does this kind of a mouth trumpet. You may or may not remember that scene. That is the guy who plays Lieutenant Forsyth. His name is Peter Jason.
Oh. I think the plot of this movie isn't bad. I just think there's things they could have done a tad differently, as you and I have been pointing out, to make it a bit better for a film that's, I think at times, I don't want to sit here and think that Hawks and Wayne just went in this to phone it in. I don't think they did that. Because if they did that, this film would have been way, 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 way worse than what we've complained about. You're right. The train sequence, amazing. It's the best part of this movie. It's one of the best action scenes, it is the best action scene in this movie, and it's executed to perfection. This is Howard Hawks' last movie, and it's like You've got a good cast. You have a decent story. If I had to remove one thing too, I would have just made one big villain, not the sheriff. The guy who's the sheriff would have been the main villain.
Yeah.
He would just, instead of, because we've had MacGuffin Outlaw, having that a third time felt like, really? I mean, I get you want John Wayne to beat up a guy, which is cool and feels heroic because he's hitting him for the guy that got killed. But it's like, okay, we've sort of seen that song and dance. Again, this is not a horrible, god-awful movie. It's not. It's entertaining. You're right. Jack Elam is one of the best. He steals this movie in every way. He is funny as hell. Here's a guy who's played good guys, bad guys,
Crazy guy,
and he's played.
Oh, that.
Yeah, he's played a bunch of different characters in a bunch of different westerns. Jack Elam is no stranger to westerns, so they have the right cast. I feel it's just the story isn't awful. It just needed a tiny bit of tuning to make it an even better film. Again, I don't think those tunes are going to make it better than the first two films we saw, because there ain't nothing to, I don't care how good you make the third one. It's not touching El Dorado, and it's not touching Rio Bravo. No offense to Howard Hawks. But
I'm going to disagree with you on one point.
Please do.
I blame Howard Hawks.
Really?
When this film's budget was $6 million, it made $4.5 million, so it was a bomb.
Wow.
Howard Hawks blamed John Wayne, said John Wayne was too old. One of the things I do when we do these films is I try to read at IMDb, TV tropes, Wikipedia, I look at some reviews. If it's an older film like this, Variety says this, and I agree with this. Hawks's direction is as listless as the plot. I agree. The train sequence, he didn't even do.
No.
Howard Hawks, I'm going to say Howard Hawks was phoning this in. Now, if it's because he was old, maybe not, his health wasn't, and he couldn't put forth the effort. I know he brought in, he fired the screenplay writer and brought in Lee Brackett. But apparently, God bless her, she said she was just trying to fill in the hose. So I'm guessing the script, we should be thankful for what we got, because apparently, from what the things I looked up, it was not a good script. I agree. Combine your bad guys with the sheriff. Let's see, what is it? Blue Tom. That was something I want. Why do they call him Blue Tom? Sheriff Blue Tom. He's played by a guy named Mike Henry. For people of my generation, Generation X, you recall the Smokey and the Bandit films? No, Professor. Jackie Gleason had his son with him. He called him Junior. Mike Henry played Junior. Mike Henry is a mean-looking son of a bitch in this film. I mean, play him for a mean, rotten character. And John Wayne being 63, and Mike Henry, he's a big fella. I mean, one of my favorite scenes is when they catch up with Victor French, and they find out Victor French was the traitor who sold the information to the Confederates that led to the train robbery. And John Wayne, he's just like punching him the whole time. And there's a point where his character's pants legs gets caught on fire, and he's like, put him out. And John Wayne's like, sign the deeds first. I'm like, for John Wayne, that's pretty dark.
Oh yeah.
But you combine Victor French and the Mike there, and you put them together, because he one of the things his character does, Blue Tom, is he finds out that this one girl, Amelita, I believe is how you say her name.
Yeah.
has helped John Wayne and them, and he carves.
Oh yeah.
It's a dueling scar. I mean, utterly gorgeous woman. And she's like,
Oh,
"Oh no, never touch me." I'm like, why are they all crazy? But I get the point. I mean, but he comes across as a mean bastard, and it's like that's where, again, I agree with you. Combine those characters and just, hey, dude, go for it.
yeah. I think they have with the sheriff. They have a bad enough heel. They have a great heel for this movie because for every good baby face, you need a mega heel. They have the mega heel with the sheriff. That's there. I mean, there is, as Butch pointed out, which is great points. There is darkness in this movie with the sheriff, and even with Wayne setting the gun on fire. You're right. It's like side to D or something. Like, yeah, yeah, that's that's dark. Damn, I haven't seen John Wayne this dark since The Searchers.
Don't tell me that the Wild Bunch didn't affect John Wayne's films, because right here is the proof.
Yeah, I agree. 1000%. You could tell John Wayne, had watched The Wild Bunch, and the way that movie was successful and as good as it looked, it had affected not just his decision, I think his decision making on screen, but you could tell he was wanting to take more chances, I think, later in his career. It's just those chances weren't.
Imagine if John Wayne's production company, Batjack, had produced this. So John Wayne's producing it, and he hires Sam Peckinpah.
Yeah. Yep.
Honestly, I think that's what this film needed. Was they were trying to move to the quote new Western, end quote, or at least the more realistic, rather than the you got me. Yeah. You needed somebody to take some chances, and I believe this may be your favorite director, so I apologize if I step on your toes with it. But as much as I don't like Quentin Tarantino, they need somebody like that to come in with a fresh take. And if you want to basically make the same film for a third time, you've got to add something to it. You can't just keep going to the well and thinking it's never going to run dry.
Well, my favorite, Hawks is one of my favorite directors. My favorite Western director is Anthony Mann. Anthony Mann, though, too, with his direction, he loved to rough up his stars. Ask the late James Stewart. if you do a seance and contact the late James Stewart, he'll tell you, yeah, he loved to rough up his stars. But with this film, I do agree with you. Howard Hawks, there's some great shots, some great scenery, but it's done by, I don't believe it's all done by Hawks. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I think Hawks didn't he get injured in this movie too?
Filming the train sequence, and he had to have stitches, though from what I read, he apparently didn't miss much time. So maybe that's why the second unit was filming all that with the train, the rest of the train sequence, and they had a little more pip in their step. According to IMDb, I found this interesting. Robert Mitchum had temporarily retired from acting, and his son Christopher Mitchum is in this film. He plays a character named Tuscarora, and Michelle Carey, Robert Mitchum and Michelle Carey from El Dorado, came to visit the set, and there was talk of bringing them in for a cameo, playing their characters from El Dorado. And Michelle Carey's character was supposed to say, "He looks like he's in the same problem you were in," referring to Robert Mitchum's character, but both turned it down. She was busy filming something else, and Robert Mitchum said he was retired. But that's another thing. This film is it's trying to bring in, if you will, a little bit of the newer generation, the next generation. Christopher Mitchum, for me, not a bad actor, but he's not an action star. I mean, he would have been perfect in Die Hard, where you need somebody that doesn't look like an action hero.
Yeah.
But then Jorge Rivera, who plays the other character, God, I'm sorry that his name is escaping me. As soon as we stop recording, I'll go. But he was apparently a big star in Mexico, and that's why he, and quite the heartthrob, and that's why he was asked to be in this film.
The name you're searching for Jorge Rivera is Captain Pierre Frenchy Cordona.
Frenchy, Cordova, yeah, Cordova. Frenchy and Tuscarora. You know, we don't have Bob and Ted here. Or you prefer.
No.
Character's first name is Cord, which is an odd first name.
It is Cord McNally.
I went through when I first started running Deadlands 20 years ago. I went through and got a bunch of westerns because I am horrible about trying to come up with names. So I took all the names of a bunch of westerns and copied them down, and I had just a special section of John Wayne characters. So that's how I remember his name.
Here's the thing: when I first did the Desert Rose Killer, I did not give my character a name at all. They just called him the Desert Rose Killer, and then I'm giving him a name, and it's like, I'll give him a Native American name. Why not? It's like, that's horrible. I did that.
Or, you know, one thing I would have suggested, they always called him Lefty. I'm just picking a name.
Right.
And, you know, he didn't like the name Lefty, but he'd gotten used to being called that. And that way you never have to give him a real name.
Yeah.
Just a suggestion there.
No, not a bad suggestion at all. That's the thing. Like, naming a character can be like the biggest pain in the ass when you're either creating a character for a game or doing a story. It's like, what's a name I haven't used in my head 1,000 times, right? Or attempted to use 1,000 times. I think here the characters' names are unique. They're different than the previous two westerns we've reviewed with Rio Bravo and El Dorado. So I applaud that effort here. I love the tiny bit of desert we do get. And yes, I'll blame somebody for the lack of desert porn, but I'll live without it. It's okay. I can be off my picks for a good hour and a half of a movie. After that, I need to go play in sand. But with this movie, I do love the town we get. I do love the settings we get for the views, and I love how when a woman's sleeping and the Frenchie tells her it's great, it's like for burial or whatever. That was funny. That just came across so good.
When she fainted and he removed her clothing so she could breathe, is that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
You know, when I was younger and I was a kid, that was kind of funny. Now it comes off a little rapey, you know, a little creepy. I try to look at it at the time and everything, you know. Obviously, Jorge Rivera was not trying to rape the actress, but it just comes off. It's like, you know, if he'd loosened a few buttons, okay, fine. The fact he took off all of her clothes is like, dude, becoming a little Pepe Le Pew there.
And then there's the woman who's shirtless, and you see her bare back, and the guy who's playing Frenchie is like, is looking out the window, then looking back at her. It's like, my God.
Now, isn't that when the bad guys, henchmen, are looking in her house?
Yeah, they're looking for him. They're looking
to distract them. You know, here's a little sexy, and they're all, no, there's nobody here, man.
It's like, even if there was, who cares? Seriously. Yeah, there's dark moments in this movie. There's funny moments in this movie. It's not, I want to be clear for me and Butch here. We're not saying this movie is the worst Western you ever see. No, it's not. It's entertaining. I think there's things they get right, but I think they have a great heel. John Wayne's character isn't a bad character. It's just, you could tell by this time, and I do agree with you, he was wanting to do something different. And they should have gave him that opportunity with this film. And maybe, I do wonder if it was Wayne or Hawks or a combination of both said, hey, we need to put over the younger talent. Because John Wayne at this time, I do believe, was wanting to work with younger talent and working more with more credible making Native American characters more relevant in his movies. If I'm not mistaken.
I would agree. I don't know if that's official, but I mean, one of the things he used to, people like to really slam Wayne for was how Indians were portrayed in his films. It's like, you've not seen Chisholm, have you? I mean, during the big scene where everybody's punching in that quarry or whatever it is, who's the only people that come out looking, who are, first of all, are clean and looking like they got any dignity? It's the Indians. And they're all just standing there and they watch the people slide down. I mean, comparatively speaking to where some Indian characters were, I hate to use the term fair for its time, but yeah, I would say that.
Now, if you want some murderous Indians, you could just watch part 1 of Horizon. Yeah. I'll go to hell.
I want to mention something that I really love about this film. At the very beginning, when it starts, there's somebody playing this really cool Spanish guitar, very slow. I would say a haunting piece of music, and I believe Jerry Goldsmith did the soundtrack, so that may be something he did. It may be someone else. I couldn't find who did it. God, I love that. That music is just perfect. It just, on paper, watching this film again for the I don't know how many time, not as many as Rio Bravo or El Dorado.
No.
I was like, on paper, man, this film looks like it's going to be great. You got this great score. You got Jerry Goldsmith. You got John Wayne. You got Howard Hawks coming back. You got this great opening scene with the train, which takes up like a quarter of the film.
Yep.
And you got Jack Elam, and you got Vic French, and you got these two attractive ladies, and you got the Mexican heartthrob, and you got Robert Mitchum's son. This, on paper, yeah, this film should have been done better than it did. It doesn't come together. And like you said, we've probably, I'll speak from in here. I've probably downed this film more than I should have. Sometimes it's intended in fun jest, because really this is not that bad of a film. You said, is this the worst Western? I was trying to think what the worst Western I've ever seen is. And off the top of my head, I can't come up with it, but there's some bad ones out there, man. There's some stinkers, just like any other genre. And we won't be doing those, because I'll tell Joe, no, Joe, I'm not doing that film. Unless we're going to sit here and Mystery Science Theater 3000 it or something.
Yeah, you see that hot looking woman on it? Yeah, she was my girlfriend. Yeah, no, I wish. I agree with you. This movie, as much as fun as we've had talking about it when we weren't recording, it's not as bad as perhaps we remembered. But when you're looking at this film as part of the trilogy it is a part of, is it close to the first two movies? No, it's not. And I do think, again, it's all about timing too. By this time, I think you're absolutely right. I think John Wayne had watched The Wild Bunch and maybe saw, okay, I need to either make a change or step up. Because here's the thing with this movie. It is dark, like you pointed out, but there is some blood in this movie. It's not necessarily the typical John Wayne complete Western in a sense.
Yeah.
It does have blood. It has John Wayne is a bit dark. The villain is very dark. I'd say in this, what's crazy about this most is Rio Lobo has the darkest villain of the three. I would say with the sheriff. He is just, to quote a fan film, he's absolute evil. And he is. When you murder the guy who made you sheriff, shit. It's just like, well, I watched that 3 times today, and my wife's like, that guy is just nasty. I guess he is. My God. But
Also, go ahead.
It's a compliment to the actor who played the villain so magnificently.
Yeah. Also, I think each of these films roughly reflects the decade in which it's made. Rio Bravo's the 50s, El Dorado's the 60s, and this is the 70s. I realize like each one wasn't made in, I don't know, 51, 61, 71. But films had changed between Rio Bravo and Rio Lobo.
Oh, yes.
And John Wayne realized that. I don't know if Howard Hawks realized it. Maybe I'm too hard on him on this, and you know, people may comment and go, yeah, you're a jerk. Howard Hawks is a genius. Yes, he was.
He was.
But he was also like any other, highly respected person in the field. Sometimes they get by on their reputation rather than their ability. And I don't know. Like I said, I know this is, like you said, this is his last film. I don't know what his health was like. Obviously, he's getting older. If John Wayne was 63, I'm sure Howard Hawks was at least 63, if not 73. So he didn't have that much energy. He just couldn't, pull his magic together, so to speak. So I was going to look it up for us real quick.
Yeah. Type in the right thing.
That will help.
Yes. Let's see. Okay, wait. 18. Make sure I get his age correct. Let's see. Yes, be correct. He was born 1896.
And this was in 1970, so he was 74. So I wasn't far from it.
Yeah, you're right. He's 74. It took that long for my computer to start typing. 74. So yeah.
Yeah, he didn't have the energy to bring. It's like John Carpenter's still with us. Would I love to see one more John Carpenter film? God, yes.
Yeah.
But as you know, and some people may think, my favorite director of all time is George Romero. I could have done without Survival of the Dead. I remember watching it going, what in the name of James Tiberius Kirk is this crap?
Movie we could have. You know what George A. Romero unmade movie we could have lived with? That unmade Resident Evil movie that he wrote so well.
Yeah. There's he was in talks to do a version of The Mummy before the Brendan Fraser film was done. George Romero loved Universal films, and that's why if you watch Land of the Dead, he says in the commentary, he's like, that's why it was so important to have that Universal logo, because he uses the old one with the plane flying around the planet. He picked that on purpose because that's what he grew up with. So there's so many, being a Romero fan, there's so many unfilmed films undone films. That's horrible. Unfilmed projects that it's just like, man, we could have got that.
Butch is being nice about it. I'm not going to be nice about it. Fuck you, Sony. Okay, I got it on. Oh my God. I do think with this film here, they had a night. They had a great cast, great score, as you point out, Jerry Goldsmith. Just there were some things that were missing. Maybe it was Howard Hawks' poor health. We don't know, but I do think for those who say John Wayne didn't realize things, that's wrong. He did. He realized them very much, because when you go back and watch this movie, as much as me and Butch did today, it's like, that's definitely not true, because here's a guy who writes a letter condemning Clint Eastwood for his violence. But when you watch this movie, I'm not saying it's as dark as High Plains Drifter or anything, but it's got some darkness to it that I haven't seen from Wayne other than The Searchers. And maybe a bit of True Grit, more so The Searchers. But it was there. It was in this movie. You had blood in this movie. Look, the most blood movie John Wayne I've seen was the Shootist. That's the other most film where he sheds blood. There is blood in this, and there's women getting cut, women getting hit. So this film has some raw, good gem material, and takes risk, which I will applaud. But again, as part of this trilogy, and I want to be clear about this, is it as good as those other two movies? No. Is this the worst Western you'll ever see? No. It's a Western you can watch and I think enjoy enough, but it's also a Western you have to realize this is the end of an era. This is marking the end of an era, really. It's marking the end of the John Wayne camp Westerns in a lot of ways. Thank you. Sorry if I'm being too long. So it's showing you that Sam Peckinpah was right. The Wild Bunch, and Butch was right. The Wild Bunch, huge inspiration on John Wayne. He realized it. Go ahead, Butch. I'm talking too much.
No, you're good. I agree with everything you say. Just keep going. Keep going.
I do think with Wayne, when we see, I know The Shootist was written for him, but the things he did in that movie, he should have won an Oscar for it. He did a hell of, again, there's a conflation of, look, when you put up John Wayne as an actor, yes, he was not the best actor in the world, no, but he was a really talented actor who knew how good he was and knew what he could pull off. And he played roles too similar too much. But I do think, though, too, it's what the audience, like you've pointed out several times, it's what the audience wanted.
Yeah.
And he played to that. But I do think he realized by this film, I can't keep playing to that. Because you do see some of that with this movie. Okay.
This is when he's starting to get into the McHugh territory, and what's I forget what the other movie is where he plays a policeman. Brannigan, thank you. John Wayne, I think had realized, and I don't know who was in charge of whatever films. I think they realized it too. It's like, we can't just keep trotting it out. Peter Cushing, one of my favorite actors, said in an interview how much he would love to do Shakespeare. He's like, how many people would want to see me do Shakespeare? Of course, I'm reading an article and I raised my hand. Right. But he goes, very few, but millions want to see me play Dr. Frankenstein, so that's what I do. Yeah. I kind of feel like John Wayne's kind of the same way. I mean, you still had these guys, and I'm sure somebody's watching this going, are you comparing Peter Cushing to John Wayne? Yes, I am. Yeah. They came out of the studio era, and I think they're still maybe a little bit in that mindset because this was, later in their career. And by there's a point, John Wayne. I'm not going to start naming films because I'll forget one. And then next thing he's like, man, I've made all these films and they're kind of all the same thing. Well, I want to do something different. Well, nobody wants to see that, John. And that's what they'll claim, and he'll probably believe it.
Yeah.
So he kind of gets trapped. It's like one of my favorite, and I would argue, arguably one of the greatest actors of all time, Jack Nicholson. Yeah. Jack Nicholson, I don't know how many times younger people, I'm like, Jack Nicholson plays crazy. Go watch a film called 5 Easy Pieces. Go watch Ironweed. Well, you have two of the greatest actors of the late 20th century, Meryl Streep and Jack Nicholson. Just sit down, shut up, and watch those films. But Jack, as he got older, got stuck.
Yeah.
Now, I loved. He did a film called not the board. It's the Border or something like that. He plays like a border agent, and he's trying to find this missing child. And it's just like, oh my god, Jack's acting. It's not Jack's acting like Jack. Jack is acting.
Yeah.
And John Wayne didn't get those opportunities, or if he did, because I know Clint Eastwood. Well, I don't know. I read several times Clint Eastwood sent him a letter saying, "Hey, let's make a film together." And John Wayne basically told him, "I don't know if he saw High Plains Drifter or what." He's like, "No." But imagine a Western with John Wayne and Clint Eastwood.
Yeah. Yeah.
By John Ford or Sam Peckinpah. I think between the two of them, I think they could have kept Sam in line, or at least more in line.
Have if this is, let's see, have it be Clint Eastwood and John Wayne, and get, before he does Halloween, get John Carpenter to direct them both.
See, I thought that just as I said that, and I said no to myself because John Carpenter wasn't known then.
Sometimes you need an unknown name, though.
I do, but how are you going to do? I think dealing with these two egos, and not that John Wayne and Clint Eastwood are known for egos, but I think having to fight with them, the old Western versus the new Western, I think that may have been beyond Carpenter's ability at that time. Let's say circa 1975. You get John Carpenter circa 1985, which of course has been too late. He's dead. But you get, once he's had time to deal with Hollywood and make more films. Yes, I would love to see a John Carpenter in his prime make a film with John Eastwood and Clint Eastwood and John Wayne. God, yes. That film would probably be stuck. I'd have the DVD, the Blu-ray, the 4K.
Oh, right. Because we've talked about this. The closest John Carpenter got to making a Western is John Carpenter's Vampires. That's just, and I put it in with my Western collection. It's like, that's a vampire movie. I'm like, honey, it's not just
with you.
It's not just a vampire movie, sweetie, my dear, love of my life, Julie. It is a Western vampire movie made by John Carpenter.
It is, but I'm going to argue that the most Western film he ever made was Assault on Precinct 13.
Because it's a remake of Rio Bravo.
And El Dorado.
Yeah, it is. It is. I want to see if Butch was going to call me on it. And good job. You're right. It is. And that's another reason I named him, because I think if he shows that film to Wayne, Wayne's going to see, hey, this is a remake of the movie we did how many years ago? And
I would have loved to have heard John Wayne's comment. I mean, maybe he would have hated it, but I would love to know what he thought about it.
I think he would have caught the reference of what they were doing. Yeah. For sure. I think he would have saw it and saw, hey, wait a second. I see what you're doing here.
The minute... what I forget if he puts it as the screenwriter or the editor. John Carpenter uses the name John T. Chance, which is John Wayne's character in Rio Bravo. I think I could see John Wayne sitting there watching her going, "What?"
Yeah, me too. Oh my God, that'd have been good. Oh my God. What's your favorite scene in Rio Lobo, Butch?
Well, how big can I go? Because that train sequence, man, that's the best part of the whole film. That's probably big, but I'm going to throw that out. So let's see if I can come up with one. Let me think about it. You go ahead.
The scene where we see the woman's face cut up, it lets you know how dark this. Because we've seen moments of darkness with the villain with the villain sheriff. But prior to that, but we really get a glimpse when we see the woman's face cut up. And it's like, oh my God.
And she has a great line then. She's like, I'm going to kill him for this. And I mean, it's not like, the Arnold Schwarzenegger, dun, 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 dun.
No.
I'm going to kill. She's just like very cold, very flat. I'm going to kill him for this.
Yeah.
And gets boys and girls. She does, because that's going to tie. I'm going to pick one just because I've been thinking about it for the last couple of days. At the end, the Sheriff Hendricks that we're talking about, he gets shot in the leg. And to further show how dark he is, some of his henchmen, they realize that things are turning against them. They take off. He shoots them in the back.
Yeah.
That's a major sin in a John Wayne film. And he gets shot in the leg, so he's using his rifle as a crutch. Well, what he doesn't think about is he gets some mud up in there, so he pulls out the gun. I can't remember if he's going to shoot John Wayne or who. When he does, the gun backfires, and it is a super quick about one scene. But, I mean, he's got wound in the facial. He's at least temporarily blinded.
Yep.
And then that's when shit comes out and shoots and kills him. Which leads to, which I'm going to include with my scene, because she shoots him and you're like, yeah. But then she drops the gun and starts crying.
Yeah.
This is not a cold-blooded killer. No, I'm not her. No, I believe Emelita. It's kind of, it's not funny, but it's probably very realistic. Somebody has done something horrible to you. You pay them back, and then you're like, oh my God, what have I done? And basically, John Wayne's like, did what Chad did. It's okay.
Yeah.
Or you asked me, do I have any other points? My last point. Emelita, or however you say her name, I apologize if I've been saying it wrong this whole time. She was played by an actress named Sherry Lansing, who went on to become the head of Paramount.
Ooh, cool.
She didn't make that many films. I found that interesting.
Awesome.
Other than John Wayne, which one is your favorite character?
You know what? The sheriff. He's a hell of a heel. I mean, don't get me wrong. I love me some Jack Elam in this movie because he's hilarious. But the sheriff is what drives this movie once they get to town. For all the young actors in this movie, the sheriff, who's your heel, does an amazing job showing you why he is the heel and the heavy.
Yeah, I was going to go with either one of them. So you got both of my choices. I agree. I mean, he is. Let me get his name. Let me pull his name back up. I knew I closed that and I shouldn't have. Mike Henry. I work with a guy named Mike Kelly. I've been wanting to call him Mike Kelly. Mike Henry. Man, I wished he had played the bad guy more. He did a great job in this film, and the thing that makes your hero more heroic is a really bad guy.
Yeah.
And you gotta, and plus big enough that he could take on John Wayne. You couldn't pick just anybody to go fight against John Wayne. You have to pick somebody that's, big as he is, kind of larger than life also. I keep wondering if anybody's going to ever pitch to Arnold Schwarzenegger to remake a John Wayne film.
Yeah.
That's about the only person I can think of that has that same bigger than life. Of course, the problem is you're now with Arnold, you're at the same point where John Wayne was this. Not that Arnold's not 63, but actually Arnold's in his 70s. So, you can't really have him running around doing, making commandos. So
do it. He's done a lot of westerns recently. Do it with Christian Bale.
Here's my problem.
Go ahead.
Can Christian Bale be the bad guy and Arnold be the hero?
Sure, why not?
Can Christian be the hero and Arnold be the bad guy?
Probably not.
Here's the thing. Arnold plays a good bad guy.
Yeah, he does.
I'm not trying to take away from Linda Hamilton or Michael Biehn or any of the other actors in Terminator, but for me, Arnold Schwarzenegger made the Terminator.
Yeah.
In as much as I like Terminator 2, I feel like making the same model Terminator, we know it's not the same one, making him the good guy. I wish they had.
Yeah.
Or, the next time we see it, he's back to being the bad guy. Even if he does a double role, I mean, you do something. Because there's a point, I feel like, all these good guys, Henry Fonda, perfect example, known for playing good guys, enjoyed playing a bad guy, in your favorite Western of all time.
Yeah.
And he did a mighty fine job, too.
That's a great point. I think you can't be afraid to make, for those who are listening, you can't be afraid to make Arnold Schwarzenegger the bad guy again. In any film, whether it's a Western or not. Because that's how he really got his launching start, playing a villain in the Terminator. And I'm probably going to go to hell. I hated her Terminator 2. I know. I love the original to pieces. It's a great film. What sells Michael Baine's line in the police station, he'll rip her heart out, is what Arnold did earlier.
Yeah.
And it's like,
great time.
It's like, Jesus, like, this guy's talking like Michael Myers is coming for, but in a sense, it's sort of like, yeah, it sort of is in a worse way.
It is very science fiction horror film, as we said when we did that one. I mean,
yeah.
The Terminator is nothing but Michael or Jason or Freddy or whoever your slasher wants to be. This unstoppable killer. I mean, that's what he is.
Yeah. I'll say this too, with that gun exploding where he gets the sand in the barrel with Rio Lobo. I love the makeup effects in this movie with that. Great job by the makeup department in this film. Great job. They just did a fabulous job. What scale 1 to 10? What do you give this?
6. This film, and I'm not a big baseball guy, I'm a football guy. Think of Rio Bravo, El Dorado, and Rio Lobo as 3 guys going up to bat. Rio Bravo comes up, it's a home run. El Dorado comes up, it's a home run. So here comes Rio Lobo. They're 3 brothers or whatever. Rio Lobo swings for the fence. He tries, but all he gets is a base hit. Is a base hit bad? No. But you've just had your brothers have both just hit home runs, so you're going to be thought of a little bit lesser. I mean, like we've said, this is not a bad. Is it a good film? That's debatable. Is it a bad film? No.
No, it's not. I'll go 6 1/4. It is a fun watch, and man, it's got one of the best heels in the trilogy. And hey, Jackie, farmer, crazy farmer, and Jack Elam sells his characters all the time. I mean, every role he ever played, he sells his characters greatly, and he sells it here too.
I just realized something with us talking about this. My favorite villain in all 3 of these films is not the main villain. In Rio Bravo, you got John Russell, who is the brother of Ed Asner. Got a great voice, great presence. He just, good-looking guy. And I just kept thinking, this guy's the brains. Yeah. Then you got, wait a minute. Sorry, that was Claude Akins. In El Dorado, you've got Ed Asner, and he brings in Nelson McLeod with the scar. Man, I said it when we did El Dorado. I love Nelson McLeod. That's my favorite character in the whole film. Yeah. And in this film, Hendrix, Mike Henry, another good. It's just like, you know what? I hate to say that, but we might need a little less John Wayne and a little more interesting bad guy.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's what drives the Searchers isn't just the Native Americans kidnapping the kid. It's how far will John Wayne's character go to get this character back, or what will he do? And it's like when you watch the Searchers, is he willing to murder a woman who became a squaw? Who knows? You know, but we know what happens. With this, I do agree with you. Villains, a little more villain, a little less John Wayne. But again, too, I do think there's things in this movie we pointed out where you could see John Wayne saw certain things by this point in time. And
John Wayne or Howard Hawks or Lee Brackett or somebody saw it and was like, we can't keep making the same film.
Yeah.
We've got to up the ante some. And it's kind of like, to return to a sports metaphor, it's like a team that's won a couple of Super Bowls or whatever it is you win in baseball and basketball. And they're like, yeah, we're doing good. We're just going to keep doing it. And there's somebody in the organization going, man, we got to keep going. We got to stay hungry. We got to do, no, we're going to be okay. And then they come in and they have a 500 year. And they're like, what happened? And there's that guy in the background going, I told you all, we can't keep doing the same thing and continually expect the same result.
Yeah. Two great metaphors, absolutely. Butch, I have a very interesting Western for you here in 2 weeks, and it does not star John Wayne. It's a movie that was not on my list. I can't find the alternate ending for it, but it is on. It's on the archive, so which I'll leave a link in the description for you. I'll send it to you. It's a Western that is very enjoyable. It's called The Great Silence.
I've heard of it. I don't think I've ever seen it.
I can't find the good ending with it because the initial ending is the ambiguous ending, like the bad ending. But I'll send it to you. We can,
okay, cool.
As soon as we get done here. But yeah, in 2 weeks we'll be back with The Great Silence, and then it'll be Butch's turn to pick again. When do you want to do the Avengers?
Let's check with our mutual friend, Mr. McCrae, and see what works with him. Because he is a big fan of that film, The Avengers. And we're not talking about the Thor, Captain America Avengers. We're talking the Uma Thurman, you find Sean Connery. Can I just say Sean Connery makes a great villain. I enjoyed the hell out of Sean Connery's performance in here. Let's get with him and we'll talk about it.
All right. For Resident Hollywood, I'm Jules Sands. That's my buddy Butch Rosenbalm. This has been Rio Lobo. Go check out the trilogy, Rio Bravo, El Dorado, and yes, check out Rio Lobo and get back to us and tell us what you think of each film. That's a challenge to all of you out there, and we hope you accept it. Good night, Butch. Have a good weekend, buddy.
You too, buddy. See ya.
Bye.